Welcome along to this month's episode of The Punt here on The42 with me, Gavin Cooney. We are here, as we are every month, in partnership with William Hill. So please always gamble responsibly. And for more information, you'll find it on gamblingtherapy.org. So we're going to look ahead to the latest instalment of Dublin against Kerry later on in the show. But first of all, let's preview this week's US PGA Championship with Brian Keogh of irishgolfdesk.com. Brian, thanks so much for joining us.
No problem at all, Gavin. Thank you for having me.
What are the hype levels like for the second major of the year?
Yeah, there's always plenty of hype for the PGA Championship now that it's moved to May. I think, we all enjoyed the Masters and Matsuyama getting the first win for Japan there. So yeah, lots to look forward to. A lot of players in good form and great golf course by the ocean. So what's not to like? All exciting.
Yeah, let's talk about the golf course first of all. We're back at Kiawah Island in South Carolina for the first time since 2012. What kind of challenge is it going to pose this year?
Yeah, well, it's a windswept, peak dye course, South Carolina, plenty of marshland around there, sea breezes, and it's extremely long. It's the longest championship, the longest course in major championship history. 7,000, almost 7,800 yards. So not for the faint-hearted, although I doubt they're going to play it at 7,800 yards from the tips. They're going to move the tees around quite considerably. I believe they're only about 4 holes, but they won't move the tees. So there'll be plenty of work to be done in those practice rounds to get used to all the different teeing grounds and all the different options they're going to have.
And we're going to have fans, as far as I'm aware?
Yeah, they're going to be fans there as well. So it should be pretty good for somebody like Rory McIlroy, who likes a bit of atmosphere and enjoyed it 2 weeks ago in Quail Hollow, where he had a few people cheering him on. I think he needs that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, Brian, I want to take you back deep into the mist of time. It's 2 months ago when Rory McIlroy had missed the cut at Augusta. He's in the slough of a career slump from which we weren't all wondering aloud, but some were wondering aloud whether he would ever emerge from it. And now he's bouncing into the US PGA Championship, but of course he's won it previously, having won at Quail Hollow 2 weeks ago as the pre-tournament favourite. So what's changed for Rory?
Yeah, well, it's always been the same for Rory, though, hasn't it? Throughout his career, there have been peaks and troughs the whole way through. And when he gets on a run, he goes on a run for about 4 or 5 months, 6 months, and wins several times, and then goes off the boil. But yeah, it's been 19 months, I think it was, 18 months, his most recent drought, and yeah, he was just getting frustrated, just wondering where the hell he was going to find a bit of form again, and he had to do a little bit of introspection, I think, and came up with a few ideas with his team, and Pete Cowan was the man that he called. I think that was the first port of call for him to bring in Pete, just have a look at his golf swing and have some eyes on him more regularly with his regular coach Michael Bannon unable to travel to the United States because of the COVID pandemic. So having Pete, I think, has been a huge boon to him to be able to just work things out on the driving range in Florida. And the other really key was the call to Bob Rotella, because as good as Rory's been over the last 10 years, it's been almost 7 years since he won a major, and he's had quite a few problems just getting over the line, even on Sundays, in so many events that he's played extremely well in, but just failed to finish off just in the past year and a half even, that maybe needed some fresh perspective there. And that's obviously helping him as well, because he spoke to him shortly after the Masters, and almost his next start, he goes out and he wins. So there's a lot coming together for Rory.
Yeah, Bob Rotella, if you have heard that name, listener, before, it's probably because he's worked with Padraig Harrington in the past. And Brian, you had a really interesting piece with Bob Rotella in the Indo yesterday. And I've just pulled out this quote. He said to you, when by Rory, he gets out of his way, there's a good chance of good stuff happening. What does Bob Rotella mean?
Getting out of your own way. Getting out of your own way. It's the same. It's been the same thing he was telling Darren Clarke for many years. He'd be getting down on himself and dropping the head and reacting to any poor shot he hit. And something that, Padraig Harrington has worked on for 20 years, and I was only just looking at my phone. I said, Bob, tell him, actually, I do have Bob's number. I'll give him a ring. And we were able to reminisce about those times with Padraig. But he tells them all the same thing, which is the amazing thing. That golf is not a game of perfect, that you're not going to do it perfectly all the time, that you just got to take it one shot at a time, and all the cliches. And just playing with that sort of joy of kid of, look, hit the ball, go find it, whatever it happens to be, and just try and get it in the hole, and that's what he was trying to get back to talking about with Rory, that rather than getting worried about, the swing or any probably faults he might have or any mistakes he might be making, just to be able to just rely on a short game and just have faith that he was going to be able to just get this up and down and make his par and move on, and he did that beautifully. I mean, he didn't hit the ball Rory McIlroy-esque statistics in Quail Hollow by any means. I think he was almost last for driving accuracy, which, for Rory McIlroy is very unusual. I mean, he's not always arrow straight, but he'll certainly be thereabouts for the strokes gained in driving or strokes gained off the tee. So, to see him right down near the bottom of the field for that, hit just 3 fairways on the final day. Okay, he missed a few just by a couple of yards, and still to win, it was because of the short game and the putting and the getting the ball in the hole. And just what Bob called, playing golf. That's what I call playing golf, just getting the ball in the hole and forgetting about all the rest. So he's obviously been able to free himself up in that way. And it worked in Quail Hollow, where he's always very comfortable. So I'd be optimistic for Rory, for the rest of the summer, if he can pull together the rest of the game.
It's almost the lesson from Rotella that I took from your piece is like, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. I know that's something that we hear in a couple of walks of life at the moment. And that was probably the most encouraging part of his technical performance at Quail Hollow, the fact that short game was really on point.
Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, he's been working with Brad Faxon now for a few years, I think since he won. I think he started working with him the week before he won in Bay Hill. Maybe that was 2018. I think he was coming off a similar kind of slump, a McIlroy slump at the time as well. He hadn't won for quite a while and had the best putting stats of his career, I think, that first week. So, it seems to be found he's always been a good putter, but not a great putter. And I think the short game is probably one of the most underrated parts of Rory McIlroy's game. He's an exceptionally a good chipper of the ball and out of bunkers. I don't know if you've noticed, but every time he's in the bunker, he invariably seems to get it up and down, especially there 2 weeks ago in Quail Hollow near the end of that round, where he had to make a few very good sand saves. So Rory's short game has always been phenomenal. His putting is, as we know, is very streaky, but now that he has those two elements working, it's just waiting for the long game to click in. And if that clicks in, I think we better watch out. I think he could do some serious damage in the majors this year.
Yeah, we saw the problems with the long game at Augusta to the point where he hit his own father just off of a fairway on the first day, and he was still a little bit wayward off the tee at Quail Hollow. Like you say, he hit 3 fairways on the final day. It's 19 out of 56 fairways across the whole 4 days. So Bob Rotella seemed to make a virtue out of that. The fact that McIlroy wasn't perfect off the tee, but still could still grind his way through the rest of the course. But given the kind of course that he's facing down at Kiawah Island this week, he surely can't replicate that kind of tee performance, can he?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it is generous enough in parts off the tee. There is a little bit of room, but there's going to be a 12-15 mile an hour wind there, and any kind of wide is going to be in serious trouble. So so he's gonna have to start finding some fairways and getting comfortable hitting the cut, which is something that Pete Can has been talking to him about. That look, this high draw is all very well, but you need something a little bit more reliable, a little bit more, stock shot just to get it in play. That little hold off cut shot, that fade, if you could just get that down. So he seems to be looking a lot more at playing that. And if he does need to hit a draw or a big draw off the tee, perhaps going down to the 3 wood. So, it'll be interesting to see if he's in the last week, he's managed to get enough confidence working on that with Cowan in Florida to put it in play this week. But it's he's going to have to hit driver certainly quite a lot. But they're going to mix up the holes quite a bit as well, distance-wise, and there's a fair bit of run compared to 2012 when it was quite soft. So you may be able to hit a wide variety of shots off the tee, and he's got a lot more variety in his game than he did 9 years ago. He's a far more rounded player, far more shots in his armory now.
He's also got a different caddy that he had 9 years ago. His mate Harry Diamond is on the bag now, and I think we saw at Quail Hollow the reason he's on it. Like he's not just there because he's his mate, is he?
Yeah, no, I mean Harry Diamond. I mean we all remember him here. Anybody who's into their amateur golf in Ireland will remember Harry Diamond playing for Ireland and winning the West of Ireland Championship quite convincingly as well. And in Ross's Point a few years ago, he was a seriously talented golfer in his own right. As much as JP Fitzgerald was a very good player and got to an Irish close final and lost and beat Darren Clark I think on the way to that final. Harry Diamond was an international and won a championship, so he was an even more accomplished golfer, if that could be said. So and obviously Rory respects his opinion on the game, and yes, it came into play very much so on that final hole in Quail Hollow, where he told him to, hey look pal, just hold on a second here, maybe take a drop and make sure you can get your third shot on the green rather than squirting something into more trouble. So he certainly earned his 10% 2 weeks ago, that's for sure. And I think Rory wouldn't have him there if he didn't know what he was doing. And it's easy to, I suppose, in social media for people to out of frustration with maybe some of the results that he's been having over the last 6 or 7 years in the majors, that maybe Harry could have stepped in maybe a little bit more often than he has done. But it's a great partnership. They're great pals, and I think that's maybe 6 or 7 wins they've had together now. So not doing too badly.
Yeah, Rory seems to be better at taking advice than he has been previously. Is that fair? Like, obviously, the example of Harry Diamond from the rough, I suppose, could have been the headline on the 18th at Quail Hollow. He's got Pete Cowan, who I understand is no shrinking violet when it comes to getting his opinions across. He's gone to Rotella now. So is that something that's maybe changing in this next phase of McIlroy's career?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Rory, it's always said, Rory doesn't like being told what to do. Maybe that's more, so when it comes to the media or, social media criticism that he might get in that sense. But I mean, he's always used, he's gathered people around him that he trusts, and he believes in that team that he has. I mean, Pete Cowan has been working with Rory McIlroy for a long time and on various different things. I remember with the Ryder Cup in Paris, going out to the practice ground, and there's Pete Cowan and Rory in the bunkers with Harry Diamond actually just working on a bit on his bunker play that week, which wasn't great earlier in the week. So you'll always go to Pete. He's always on the range, and there'll always be chats and can you have a look at this? Can you have a look at that? Especially about pitching and shots around the green. He's exceptionally good on that. So he's getting older, isn't he? He's a more mature guy. I mean, he's 32 now. He's been around a long time, with 14 years or so. It's I think we're just coming into his prime really now, Rory McIlroy, which should be a bit of a worry for some of the other guys.
Yeah, and just lastly on Rory, the confidence is back, isn't it? Like, I mean, there's nobody whose mood is more conspicuous in golf than McIlroy. You can see it, that bounce off the tip of his toes when he leaves a putting green, and contrasted with the slump you see and that we've been seeing too often in the last couple of years. Nick Faldo said something interesting. Like, obviously Colin Morikawa is the defending champion, but we're back at Quail Hollow for the first time for US PGA Championship since Rory won. So Faldo says that McIlroy will come into this feeling like he's a defending champion, and the supporters are there, and it's just a whole coming together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's got that pep in his step. He's puffing the chest out, and as you say, that little McIlroy strut, that little bounce in the step is certainly there. mystery shots and the things that have been going wrong for him over the last while. He hasn't been hanging the head and doing the woe is me bit. So I think Hotel has been huge for him in that regard, and if he can keep that going, I think more so than Pete Cowan. I think if he can just keep going with the grind of just reminding himself of all those things that you have to do in that mental game. I mean, Padraig Harrington's still going to see and sitting down for hours at Bob Rotella tournaments, 20 years later, still going through all the same stuff and all the same reminders. If you can do that, Rotella called it being an everyday golfer, as in doing it every single day for every single round that he does. I think that's going to be the difficult part for him, but certainly I'd be optimistic. I don't know about this week. Who knows where the long game is going to be. But I'd certainly expect him to be thereabouts.
Shane Lowry, the next hurdle, I suppose, in his career is to win a major on American soil. Brian, is this the week for Shane Lowry?
Yeah, this could be a good week for Shane. Seaside Golf Course, Pete Dye Golf Course. I mean, we were talking to him on Saturday morning. We had a little sort of Zoom chat, and one of the boys reminded him that his two top tens this year have come on Pete Dye Golf Courses in the Players and in the RBC Heritage. Two very different courses to Kiawah Island, perhaps. The Players Championship being a lot tighter and a lot more maybe strategic, and the RBC Heritage is Harbour Town as well, being another shorter golf course compared to this monster that they have this week. But Shane, we all remember Shane winning that WGC in Firestone. So I mean, he's almost won a major on US soil already, and came close in a couple of US Opens too, perhaps. So I don't think it's going to be that big a step up for Shane. He's already won an Open, so I don't think he'd be too worried about that in terms of the pressure. He's been there and he has a major under his belt, so he's got that going for him. I just think he was talking a little bit about the mental game as well. That's the sort of the level these guys are at now, that the physical aspect of the game is something that they all control pretty well. And once the game was in reasonable condition going into a major, Shane was happy enough. He was happy to have a little bit of tension or a little bit of worry about this or that, or maybe I'm not hitting it as well as I might, or I'm almost hitting it as well as I might like, but just not quite. So just to have that little bit of competitive or nervous tension about his game, he felt was a good thing, not complacent coming in, and just around the greens he was maybe not quite at his very best in the last few months, especially I think in his last outing he was poor enough around the greens, and he just had Neil Manship with him at the weekend, and they managed to spot something, and it was just a word that he said to him. They managed to just get the strike going again on the pitching, which is going to be huge around the greens this week. So I think Shane's, I think he got a look at the golf course yesterday and was kind of blown away by how tough it's going to be. I think he's expecting it to be a seriously tough test, especially off the tee. But I'd expect Shane, can move the ball both ways, not afraid of the wind, has plenty of length, and can really chip and putt. I'd expect Shane Lowry to be certainly up and around the top 20 going into that weekend, certainly.
Yeah, obviously Padraig Harrington's main priority this year is the Ryder Cup. He's in the field for this US PGA Championship. Ryan, what success for Harrington this week?
Yeah, Padraig, I just saw him do his little video blog of review of the previous week's tournament, and he was just sort of going, great start last week, and what a disaster in the second round. He did really poor. I don't think he held a putt outside 4 feet. His chipping was really bad, so he just said he's really worried about his chipping and his putting, and which is obviously when you're pushing on towards 50 years of age, as he will be in August, that's an aspect of the game that he's better than ever from tee to green. I mean, he really is. He's straighter. He hit 18 greens in regulation, last Thursday in the AT&T bar in Nelson, which is really unprecedented for Padraig Harrington, who could shoot 65 hitting 5 greens, by just going for so many pins and chipping in from just off the far side over the years. That was always his philosophy. So if Padraig can sort out the chipping over the next couple of days, it's not a bad course. He's won a World Cup around that golf course with Paul McGinley, so you'll have some good memories of that. And you know, Padraig might have been just exaggerating a little bit, maybe about how bad he was around the greens. But I think, yeah, he's got other fish to fry, hasn't he, this year with the Ryder Cup coming up? But he's a competitor. I mean, he'll want to play well. He'll want to perform, and I think if he could get off to a decent enough start, you know, somebody like that, in with the chance with 18 holes to go, Padraig Harrington, excuse me, he's not a guy you'd write off, is he? But I think it's looking difficult at the moment. Just came in after 5 weeks off, I think, in Texas there last week, and obviously a little bit rusty. So maybe a bit soon for Padraig this week. But we'll wait and see how he goes in round one anyway.
Yeah, if there is a Harrington miracle, I think it's time we do, as a nation, consider honorary citizenship for Dr. Bob Rotella. I'm looking at the length of this course, Brian, and I'm thinking, like Bryson DeChambeau, is it not built for him?
Yeah, you would think so, wouldn't you? But he's just so wild at times. You know, I know he hits that driver extremely straight, but you're just waiting for him to have a 7 or an 8. He seems to have one every couple of weeks, and I just think he just can't afford to do that, and especially on championship courses like the Ocean course, the Kiawah Island, where, you know, a mistake could lead to a seriously big number. So unless he's going to hit a lot of driving irons and and fairway metals or whatever off the tees, he'll be up there perhaps, you know, around about. He could still have a 76 in the first round and turn it around with a 65 in the second. He seems to be, you know, his MO these days. You can never really write him off. He goes on these runs of 9 holes of incredible golf. But I just think I'm just a little bit worried about him maybe just getting frustrated and spraying one into the marshland.
Yeah, I'm sure he won't do what he did a couple of weeks ago and head home on Friday and only realize that he'd actually made the cut when he landed back home 1,000 miles away. So who are you looking at winning this, Brian?
Yeah, well, you know, obviously Rory is the man that is the favourite. I mean, he won going away 9 years ago. Very different Rory McIlroy, in a very sort of different golf course at the time. There's been a few changes to it since, and it's a lot firmer than it was then. So the ball's really running into trouble. So it's going to be bring in a lot more players, I think. You know, we're going to bring in a few of them, maybe the medium hitters, you know, a few of the guys that maybe don't hit the ball a million miles. It's not going to play at 7,800 yards every single day. It's going to always favor players who hit the ball a long way. They've always got an advantage no matter what course it is. But so I think we're going to see a bit of a mixture of players, as we saw, you know, back in 2012 as well, you know, when David Lynn was up there and Ian Poulter was up there and Tim Clark was up there as well. You know, they're all shorter sort of players, you know. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised to see, you know, one of those kind of players up there again this week. It's not going to be all about Rory McIlroy and Dustin Johnson and Bryson DeChambeau and Tony Finau and these guys who hit the ball absolutely miles.
Yeah, I love 100-1 odd bet on a major. So have you anyone in that hinterland?
Well, I was just looking there earlier. I mean, you could pick out a few. I mean, okay, he's not short at this stage, you know, but he's getting on in his late 40s. You know, Stuart Sink, who's had a couple of wins this year, he's 125-1. I see on the William Hill website. So, you know, he's a guy, he's got a son on the bag. You know, he's won a major before. He was the man, of course, who famously beat Tom Watson at Turnberry that time, you know. So, I mean, he's been there. He's in fantastic form. So he might be a player worth looking at if you're looking for a bit of value at long odds. That was certainly one of mine. And then, you know, if we're looking for somebody, one of the more the favorites perhaps, or one of the better players, you know, the Australians, they love a windy, hard and fast golf course, you know, by the sea, you know. So, you know, somebody like Mark Leishman, who's, you know, 50-1. He's had a win this year in the team event as well. You know, New Orleans, I think he's been quoted as saying as well that he kind of half fancies his chances around the course. He played in 2012 as well. You know, he likes it. It's very similar to the sort of Australian sandbelt type golf that those guys love to play, where it's hard and fast and really good ball strikers. So, you know, he's a great ball striker. He really is phenomenal. So, you know, he's a guy I think who's got a great chance. You know, and then you got to look at, you know, the great putters, and the great short game magicians, and that's why, I've just got a feeling for Jordan Spieth this week. I just think if it doesn't lash rain and soft enough the golf course, I think he's straight enough these days, having finally won after a long period without winning. He's showing a bit of form. Okay, he missed a tournament or two there because of COVID over the last month, which maybe disrupted his plans a little bit. But he was up there top 10, I think, alongside our Seamus Power, last week without doing anything spectacular. I think shot 1 under maybe on the final day. So Spieth with that putter in his hand, if he gets that going, great imagination, loves to work the ball around the place. I think he's going to be in with a chance. He's just got that extra bit of pressure with the career Grand Slam hanging over him, which Rory's faced for years. So maybe that'll be the factor there that puts the brakes on him a little bit. But I'd fancy Spieth to do quite well.
Brian Keogh, thanks so much for joining us. Do stay tuned. We're talking Gaelic football next. I'm joined now by Fintan O'Toole and Kevin O'Brien of our GA desk to look ahead to the standout Allianz League fixture of the weekend. It's Dublin against Kerry at the home of Gaelic football in Semple Stadium. So we will talk about the actual game in a few minutes, lads. But Fintan, can I start by asking, how much fun is it to watch David Clifford play?
It's brilliant, isn't it? He, you think he might kind of maybe take a small bit of time to get into his stride for the 2021 season, but 3-6 last Saturday kind of fairly set the bar pretty high. I kind of think I just continue to be amazed by how quickly he's taken to kind of senior football, because there's so many kind of guys come out of minor level, underage level, and they're hyped up, and for whatever reason it just takes them kind of a bit of time. They might have injury setbacks or not get a run in the team, but he just continues to kind of go from strength to strength. And I guess as well, maybe it's the way he kind of plays football. I'm trying to think, Diarmuid Connolly had a bit of that as well, in an age where everything is kind of really tactical and there's so much strategy to it, and there's kind of so much onus on, especially I suppose if we look at the market leaders, Dublin, kind of getting the ball into the scoring zone, and it's kind of such kind of routine the way they score points. But he just does stuff that's just absolutely fantastic to watch. And I guess it also kind of maybe proved last week about what an aberration it was last November in his one championship game of 2020 with kind of some of the shots he missed. And that that was that's definitely not kind of sign of what's to come. The third goal last week, he's just absolutely fantastic to watch. And I think especially the interplay, obviously I think we've seen over the last couple of years with Sean O'Shea, who we came up with from underage level together, but now there's another element to it, the fact that his brother, who he's obviously played with club level, divisional leagues, Kerry, that's another person to kind of feed him, and it just shows what an absolutely amazing attacking threat Kerry have at their disposal.
How good is his brother, Kev?
Yeah, he is pretty good. I remember actually seeing Paddy play for the Kerry juniors. It was probably 2018. I think I was covering a championship match in Kildare, and Kerry were playing Kildare juniors beforehand, and he just ripped it up there. He was playing centre forward. I remember at the time thinking, obviously it's hard to kind of judge how a guy playing at junior level will do at senior, but I remember just thinking that this guy's unbelievable, and always sort of followed him then after that, thinking, will he get a shot with the senior team? And as Fintan said there, playing with East Kerry obviously put him on a platform really to show his quality at the top level of football in Kerry. But I think having him in that forward line now with David, he knows his runs inside out, and it can only be a benefit really to have him playing there and giving the balls inside to David there as well.
Yeah, Fintan, Kerry made such a hames last year. Has it, maybe it's too small a sample size from that, not only just one game, but the Galway performance wasn't exactly up to anything really. But has anything changed already? Is there any signs of any improvements to make sure that Kerry will never again repeat what happened in the depths of winter last year?
Well, I suppose given my own county allegiances, obviously I will hope that there's a repeat of what happened last year. But I think it definitely showed that this year is unfolding along similar lines to last year, with a knockout championship and a compressed schedule. So the strategy that was applied previously has to be kind of thrown out the window, and you just can't take the long-term view. As I know they say they weren't playing defensively, and they've tried to defend maybe the inclusion of kind of recognised forwards, or recognised defenders, in their half forward line. But clearly, I think they just took their eye off the ball. I think they were looking too far down the road, and I think Cork played above themselves. Had a really smart game plan, developed it into a battle, and then that's the beauty of sport. The underdog can kind of mug the favourite on the finish line. Really, really small sample size, only one game so far. You'd definitely be, from Galway's point of view, given how they lost to Mayo last year, you'd be pretty concerned with that level of beating to take again. But definitely, I suppose the one thing they definitely seem to have done is kind of trust in the attack, the attacking strengths that they have. Like, we knew that with Clifford and Sean O'Shea, but obviously, Paudie Clifford is kind of another strength of the bow. Paul Ganey coming back fit as well. I think sometimes he's kind of the forgotten one about it. Like, he was the main man in the attack in 2016, 2017. He was a 2-time All-Star. That's not that long ago. So they do have like an array of riches up front. The one thing last Sunday or Saturday, didn't tell us, and it is going to be a thing next weekend, we'll probably find out a bit more, is just the nature of the defence. Because I think the other storyline over the winter was just the amount of retirements that they had. And okay, maybe a lot of them weren't first team regular players, but Peter Crowley was, and he would have been regarded as their main kind of defensive stopper the last couple of years. And I'm still not exactly sure who were going to be the kind of main guys that they rely on for that. It's like they brought on a guy, Mike Breen, for his debut last Saturday. Graham Sullivan is another emerging prospect, but I think for all the good work that they have going forward, I think there's still a couple of things at the back that they kind of need to figure out next Saturday or next Sunday, and obviously over the course of the rest of the summer.
Do you share those concerns, Kev, about Kerry's defence?
Yeah, I mean, I think the system they played last year told us a lot. The way they set up against Cork, I think it told us that Peter Keane didn't trust the defence, and he was looking down the line to playing against Dublin. And I mean, he started bringing up the ugly wing forward, who's a really good sticky corner back, and he play wing back as well. But I think that said a lot about the way he set up that team, and he's obviously had a long time to stew over their exit last year, and I think he would have got a lot of criticism locally over how they played. And I suppose it was refreshing to see how they set up, and Kerry has so many quality forwards that you nearly have to just pick them on and just let them play. But I think like it's kind of, you can look too much into that game as well, because I just thought Galway, like, they were so poor. They just stood off Kerry, and if you allow Kerry to pick out passes like that, they're going to rip you apart like they did. So I think, Dublin are probably going to bring something hugely different to what Galway did, and it'll be interesting to see, like, in terms of the quality of ball that goes inside to David Clifford and Sean O'Shea and Paudie Clifford and those guys. Like, it'll be completely different, I think, this time around, because as I said, if you let Kerry play football, they will absolutely play football like they did at the weekend.
Yeah, I know you don't want to read too much into the Galway game, Kev, but to read too much into the Galway game, did we see anything from that and from the team selection and how Kerry play to say that maybe that Peter Keane has switched the emphasis a little bit back to suiting their strengths, suiting their attacking strengths by effectively playing more attackers? Yeah,
big time. He played Sean O'Shea a little bit closer to goal, which is interesting, and Paudie Clifford played around centre forward. And it even, like Fintan mentioned, Paul Ganey there, who traditionally would have been an inside attacker, and that's where he won his All-Stars, but he's been playing on the half-forward line as well. And he obviously, Peter Keane trusts him to get up and down the pitch as well. And you've Darren Moynihan on the other wing. They're two good kick passers, and I think the big thing for Kerry you would have seen is they were given early ball inside into the inside forwards. And even when Tommy Walsh came on, then he brought a different element to it. I think they've probably been working on the advanced mark over the last few weeks, and you could see when he came on, he was about 5 or 6 inches, I'd say, taller than the guy he was marking. And you could see Kerry, when they got the ball to the 10 and 12 positions, they were trying to put in this diagonal ball into Walsh, which worked pretty successfully, I think. So I think for Kerry, it's just getting the ball out quick and getting it into the danger man, because I mean, even compared to Dublin, like, you'd nearly back the Kerry front six to be as good, arguably better than Dublin.
Desi Farrell won't be on the sideline in Semple Stadium, Fintan, because of the illicit training session we all know so much about a couple of weeks ago. Mick Galvin is there instead. Did that have any impact in the opening weekend against Roscommon, and do you think it will have an impact as the league goes on?
I don't really, to be honest, and I think mainly because he's not a new manager, because he has a season under his belt, and I also think because he has such a kind of a big knowledge of these players from working with them at underage level, and that they know him. And obviously, I think Gavin touched on it. I think he said I'm on the phone to Desi 4 or 5 times a day, but I have been for kind of most of my life. You know, I think they're obviously clubmates in the Fianna. So you can still kind of sense his influence. But I just think it would be a concern if it was his first year. And you see that around the country with other managers that started last year for the first time because of the pandemic, didn't get access to their players. I mean, Jack O'Connor has touched on this in Kildare, Mike Quirk and Laois. I think that must be very, very difficult for them, just getting to know the guys. But like Desi has such a knowledge of these, you know, from the initial crew, the Brian Fintan group of that won the All-Ireland Under-21 in 2014 to Conor Callaghan's vintage that won it in 2017. And then obviously last year, okay, he didn't have them as long as he wanted, but, you know, he had a few months with the older guys, the likes of James McCarthy and, you know, Philly McMahon and all these. So I think more than any side in the country, you think of the other managers that have been kind of affected by this, like, you know, Monaghan with Panty McEnany and that, you know, I don't really think it's an issue for Dublin at the moment. You know, they've obviously lost a couple of guys over the winter as well to retirements. Maybe Michael Darmacaulay's maybe the one interesting one in the sense that he robs them of a kind of a midfield option. It's maybe an interesting one as regards who's going to be the regular there. Alongside Brian Fintan, but you know, like Kevin was at the game last Sunday, he would have seen a couple of new guys that they're kind of trying in. So I think it's a pretty seamless sideline transition, to be honest, and I kind of expect it to stay that way for the rest of the league. Yeah, a lot of us, Kev, spend the winters and what is now May of the league looking for a few chinks in Dublin's armour. Obviously, you were at the game against Roscommon. There weren't many on display, really, were there?
Not really. I think the interesting thing looking at that Dublin team, as Fintan mentioned, the midfield partner for Brian Fintan is probably the big thing that Dublin will try and get out of this league if they're looking for anything in particular. I think, like Jack McCaffrey obviously left ahead of last season, but because of his absence, I think James McCarthy will play on the half-back line, whereas if they had Jack in there, I think the ideal pairing is McCarthy and Fintan there midfield. But because McCarthy now will more than likely play on the half-back line, Desi's probably looking at potential partners for him, and Tom Lahiff was the interesting choice of the weekend. He's from St. Jude's, he's big, tall, rangy. He caught a few kickouts and kicked the point, and he did look decent. So he's probably in pole position to nail down that spot beside Fintan at the moment. But just going back to Mick Galvin and his role now replacing Desi for the league. I mean, it's almost a cliche, but it's such a player-driven group now at this stage. Like, it's the big names like Fintan, Kilkenny, McCarthy, Cooper, Small, these guys who are driving it on. So I don't think it's going to have too much of an impact not having Desi around. Like, I'm sure he's in constant contact with the players, and because Dublin's style of play is so well refined at this stage, they don't really need to change too much. I think a couple of tweaks here and there, but I think with Dublin they just want to keep on rolling and more of the same as they go forward.
Yeah, I did read ahead of the league, I think it was Michael Foley in the Sunday Times described this league as the leaguiest league that ever did league, just because we haven't meant to have inter-county training until a couple of weeks before it started, and then it's right into a championship. But I get the feeling, Fintan, that this is a much bigger game for Kerry than it is for Dublin. Yeah,
I think so. I think it's interesting to compare Kerry's relationship with Dublin in the league to Mayo's. Mayo never actually managed to land a blow against Dublin in the league throughout all those times when they were taking them to the absolute, you know, the end of the game, 75th minute in the championship. And I often wondered, was that a small little factor as much as you could maybe attribute to them not managing to kind of get the job done during the summer? Anyway, except that Mayo had all sorts of peculiar conditions with kind of player access and all that kind of thing. And they were always kind of maybe slow starters during the kind of spring months. But like, Kerry have quite a good record against Dublin in the league the last couple of years. I mean, you know, they beat them in the 2017 final. Then obviously, you know, they would have beaten them at Ossenstack Park. They had the draw last year then in Croke Park. So I think that the only thing that probably they would be looking to avoid is like something like happened in 2018. It was the one year they took a big beating off them in the spring, and that was the year things actually kind of unraveled for them then in the Super 8s. So I don't think a win is absolutely essential. I think a good competitive showing, find out a bit more about a couple of players, you know, I kind of think that will suffice for them. But in terms of the rustiness of teams and all that, I do accept that. But I think simply because of the time, I don't know, can teams really kind of wait around as much this year to kind of find out or find form or kind of get things going. Like, it was interesting, I was thinking last week, and of the top teams, Kerry, Mayo and Donegal were all playing their first game of the year 6 weeks before they play their first game of championship. which is in knockout. Now, they're all favoured to win those games. Like Kerry are going to be against Clare in Killarney on, I think, Saturday, June 26th. And like, it's a big game they're expected to win. But if last year taught them more than anything, is that if you're just a small little bit off in this throwback championship, because it's knockout, then the season can come crashing down. So I think that they probably, I wonder was there a hint of that last Saturday, and that they recognise that, you know, we don't have any time to wait around here, lads. We've got to hit the ground running. So obviously you could see that with the enthusiasm levels of the players and the kind of hunger. So I would be expecting to see a good bit more of that again on Sunday, in Thurles.
Yeah. What do you think, Kev? Are you in agreement with Fintan that while Kerry don't necessarily need to win this game, they can't afford to get, you know, bet out the gate either?
No, I actually think Kerry do really need to win this game. I think it's a huge game for them. Like Dublin, realistically, they don't need to hit top form till mid-August when they play the All-Ireland semi-final. But I think Kerry, for this group of players, it's important for them to get one over on Dublin. Like, if you think back to the 2020 league game, it was in January. Dublin had literally, they were back from a team holiday, like, I think it was like 10 days beforehand or something like that. I think Farrell had a handful of training sessions with his players, like maybe 3 or 4 at the most. And Kerry should have won that game. Dublin came back, I think, near the end, and then Clifford kicked the equaliser with that brilliant last minute free. But I think that was a big opportunity for Kerry. And, you know, the way the season turned out, we kind of expected them to get another pop at Dublin, and they didn't. So this will be an interesting one. Like, there has been a bit of spice for these games over the last few years. Like, the image that jumps out from last year is Clifford coming off with his jersey torn at the end of the game. There was a bit of a melee there. And then even the game Fintan mentioned in 2019 in Austin Sack Park, like there was a few brawls there. I think, was that the game where Jim Gavin, when he was leaving the pitch, he just sort of circled around the fight and didn't actually look at it even at all?
There was a fight, and you could just see the TV cameras, Gavin just walking across like as if a bystander just observing it all.
Yeah. So like, that was classic Jim Gavin. But like, there has been a bit of spice between these teams, and like you were talking about Mayo there, and obviously when they played Dublin Championship, you could really see there was, I won't say a hatred, but you know, there was definitely a big intensity there, and guys just really didn't like each other, I think, on the field. So I think for Kerry, like, they do need to lay down a marker. They need to bring the physicality, and because the whole country has been talking David Clifford up over the last week, like, Dublin will be well aware of what they're going to bring, and it's a big opportunity, I think, for both teams to show what they're going to bring this season.
Kev, do you think there's a little bit of added pressure on Kerry just because the whole country wants a proper challenger to Dublin, and we have always seen Kerry as the main team positioned to do that, and obviously the 2019 All-Ireland final was proof that they can be that challenger? Like, do you think that brings an added bit of pressure to Kerry outside of, obviously there's always expectation within the county, but externally too?
I don't know if it adds pressure, because if you look at Mayo, like, Mayo were nearly everyone's second favourite team over the last few years, and every time they got to the final in the last decade, the whole country wanted Mayo to win just because of Dublin's success. I think the pressure on Kerry is the fact that Peter Keane now is in year 3. He changed things up last year. It didn't work out at all. He's in year 3 of a 3-year term, so there's been no talk yet, you know, whether he will stay on or not. But I think for him, he's got to look at this as this is his last, this could potentially be his last chance, you know, his last season as Kerry manager. And for a lot of players as well, you know, it's time really now that they step up. Like, Clifford is probably the best footballer in the country, and he has no All-Ireland medals yet. So I think for the likes of him and Sean O'Shea, they want to step up and start winning medals at the top level, and they're probably sick of looking at Dublin dominating the landscape over the last 6 or 7 years. So I think internally the pressure more so, and then down in Kerry, like, there'd be huge pressure on Peter Keane as a manager as well to produce the goods.
Fintan, call it.
I'm probably kind of sitting on the fence a bit in the sense that I actually think a draw could be a good prediction for this one.
So you're sitting squarely and entirely on the fence.
Yeah, but I think there's a bit more logic to it than as opposed to refusing to give you a shout. Just looking at the results the last couple of years in the league, I mean, the 2018 game I referenced earlier, like Dublin won that by 12 points, but that's kind of deviated from the pattern. You know, there's been a couple of draws, there's been 2 1-point wins as the league accounters. They obviously drew in the 2019 All-Ireland final. I think you can get the draw at 15-2 with William Hill. So that would be probably the one that I would go for. But I'm really looking forward to it as a game, because I think because it's so close to the championship matches, like go back to what you were kind of referring to there, but Kerry being Dublin's main challenger. Last couple of years, we've had these classic early season encounters, but then everyone's bemoaning the fact that, God, we're not going to see a good game of football again at Dublin Challenge for another 7 or 8 months. The beauty of this is that it's the 23rd of May they're playing. Now they can't actually meet each other and say the championship is the All-Ireland final, but that's only 3 months away. So this may give us a bit more clues in terms of this rivalry then, and we can maybe read a little bit more into it than we perhaps could into the league games of earlier years.
Kev, which side of the fence are you falling? Or are you sitting on it with Fintan?
I'm going to jump off the fence. I think I'm going to go with a narrow Kerry victory. And to be honest, I've often been left with egg on my face predicting that Dublin will lose. But I just think there's a few different factors. Like Dublin the last day against Roscommon, they had to use the third choice keeper, Michael Shield, and because Evan Comerford picked up an injury during the week. So we're not sure if he'll make that. But I think that if you saw the Kerry game last week, like they really targeted the goal, the kick out, they pressed right up. And I think if Shield does play in goals, and even Comerford, because he's young and relatively inexperienced, I think Kerry will really target the kick outs there and press right up on that and try and turn them over that way. So I'm going to go with a narrow Kerry victory, but you know, Dublin probably come out and win the game. But no, I think Kerry will do it. But it's going to be really tight, and it probably will come down to the last few minutes again.
Yeah, judging by his comments after the Galway game, Peter Keane will be devastated, Kev, to hear that the prediction that Kerry might actually win. Kev, Fintan, thanks a lot. That's it for this month's episode of The Punt. We've been here in partnership with William Hill, so please do gamble responsibly. And for more information, you can visit gamblingtherapy.org. Thanks very much for watching. Enjoy the glut of sport on this weekend, and we'll be back here on The Punt next month. But until then, take it easy.